What's up, everybody? Welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, and today on the show, I'm going to be talking about Cuckoo. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews, and also wherever you get your podcast, drop in and leave us a good review. So, Neon, the studio behind the recently released Longlegs, which has been garnering a ton of great reviews, making bank at the box office. If you haven't seen my review of it, definitely go check that out. If you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely go check out Longlegs. Over the weekend, they released their new movie Cuckoo in theaters. If you haven't heard much about this one, I'm not surprised because it doesn't seem like they really put a ton of marketing behind this movie as much as Longlegs. It seemed like they really were impressed by Longlegs and really wanted to go out and promote it because they thought they really had a hit with it. And boy, were they right. This one, it seems like they were kind of weren't sure of how this one was going to do. So they did put some marketing out on it. Definitely didn't go as crazy with it as they did with Longlegs. And after watching it, I can really understand why. Now, I'm not going to really go into spoilers or anything like that because it is a brand new movie. This movie is directed by Tillman Singer and stars Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens. And I'm really only mentioning them because they are kind of the big players of the movie. They are the main central type characters of the flick. There are other characters, of course, interwoven throughout the movie, but the real main important characters that you follow in this movie are Hunter Schafer's character, Gretchen, and of course, Dan Stevens' character. And anybody who's kind of familiar with Dan Stevens' work across like other horror flicks, you kind of understand automatically what kind of character he's going to be playing through this one. And Hunter Schafer, I haven't really seen a lot of their previous work, but specifically in this one, they do a great job with it. Now, to kind of give you like a loose synopsis of the flick, you follow Gretchen, whose mother recently died. Seems like her parents were divorced for a while because her father is already married and has another child. They were moving into this resort because the father and I believe the stepmother is also involved with help kind of construct and kind of map and blueprint and design new areas of this resort. But this, of course, given this type of movie, it is no ordinary resort. And that's what I kind of really like about the movie is throughout the whole course of this movie, from the beginning to the very end, there's just this sense of just something sinister lurking beneath the surface. And I'm not just talking about the resort in general, but I'm talking about every single character other than Gretchen, the main character you follow. And of course, Dan Stevens' character is the most mysterious of them all. But it really says something when you have that kind of atmosphere and tone to a movie where you kind of feel uncomfortable just for the main character in any given situation. Even just talking to maybe a character that you don't even really see throughout the rest of the movie or only see once or twice. It just seems like every little character seems like they're hiding something. And whether it's true or not, it just kind of gives you that sense of uneasiness and kind of dread throughout the movie. Because, of course, with moving into this resort, there's a lot of shady stuff that's going to be happening throughout the course of this movie. Some things that the main character just kind of notices here and there going throughout the day. At one point, the main character starts working the front desk of the resort, checking people in the rooms and whatnot. They don't want her working past a certain time. They want the doors locked and nobody in the office after a certain hour for some weird reason. And of course, for anybody who has seen any of the trailers or any of the marketing or posters for this movie, there is a person or some type of entity that is kind of mysteriously lurking behind the scenes or kind of chasing the main character around throughout this movie. And that's really what gives the movie another huge level of mystery to it. Now, Hunter Schafer, I haven't really, like I mentioned, I haven't seen any of their previous work, but they do a very good job of playing this kind of broken down character that's going through a lot of stuff. They mentioned that the main character is only 17, about to turn 18, but with the death of their mother, they're going through a lot of stuff. They're going through a lot of trauma.
It's a movie about trauma.
It's a movie about trauma.
The movie is about trauma.
They made a movie about female trauma.
And they just don't really know how to process that. And they don't really have anybody to talk to, really. And so you have this basic story point of her having to call her mother's voicemail, calling her mother's old phone so she can just hear her voice and kind of have somebody to vent to because nobody else is really around to vent to. And the character's kind of stuck in a shitty situation because they have all these emotions and trauma built up, but they don't really have anybody to talk to. I mean, they have their father who's not really present because he's either off working or else he's spending time with their stepmother or their half sister. And growing up coming from a similar situation, especially having a step parent, it's hard. It's hard going through certain emotions or going through certain, events in life and not having someone really to talk to, or just having your mom or your dad spending time with your step parent more, just not giving you enough attention. I kind of understand where this characters are coming from, so I can understand kind of the emotions behind it. So amongst dealing with not liking their step parent, which, as a kid, nobody really likes a step parent. You have to find other ways to kind of fill your time. And, she finds time through, dealing, playing music or listening to music or just going off on adventures. And of course, during out the events of this movie, whether she's wandering around or she's working at the resort, as the lobby attendant, she starts to kind of figure out or find out a lot more than she should about this place. And that's really where the mystery lies with this movie. And I'm of course not going to go into a lot of spoilers, and all I'm going to say is the mystery of it is interesting. I found about 80 to 85% of this movie very interesting. It had me locked in, but around that back half, around that third act, it really starts falling apart for me because this movie has a lot of interesting ideas and it has a lot of potential to build on, but I feel like a lot of it is wasted and they don't really go far enough with a lot of the stuff they introduce. And I really feel like they don't do a really good job of explaining a lot of the stuff that is happening throughout this movie because a lot of the mystery that lies beneath this movie gets introduced throughout the course of it. And there's a lot of elements that are, brought to the surface and provided to you, but they don't really do a good job of explaining them. They do a great job of introducing them to you, but they don't really give you an explanation, which in certain circumstances is fine. Some stuff doesn't need to be explained for you to get it. They really kind of go through great detail of explaining of what's happening within the movie with a lot of the mystery and stuff behind the scenes, but they don't give you a reason why. And that's the real big question. I feel like through the back half of this movie, I was really scratching my head, just like wondering why this is happening. Why are these characters this way? Why are these characters doing these things that they're doing? I feel like this movie leaves you a lot more questions than answers. And by the end of it, when the credits were rolling, I was just scratching my head, just like wondering like what the point of this movie really was. And that's not to say this movie is bad by any means. Like I said, I was locked in for a majority of this movie. I was genuinely invested in what they were providing to me. And I was really intrigued by a lot of the elements they were inserting throughout this movie. But there's a couple things they introduced in this movie that either just aren't explained at all or they just never come back up again. And or the stuff that is introduced or explained, they don't really give you a reason why. They give you everything up front about what's happening, but not a real reason like why this is happening. How did this happen in the first place? What is the point of all this? And I feel like with a movie like this, where it's kind of like a mystery type thriller, it kind of deserves to owe you some explanations by the end of the movie. My big problem with the third act was it kind of comes off anticlimactic in a way. I feel like it doesn't go as far as it really should with everything being built up to it. It just kind of trails off and peters out by the very end. And I feel like they wrote themselves into a corner and they really didn't know what to do towards the end of the movie. But I feel like it had a lot of potential, and I feel like there was a couple points in the movie where I thought there would have been a huge reveal, and it just never really came. It gives you everything up front for there to be a big reveal, and then it just never happens. And I was just kind of like, for lack of a better term, it kind of gives you blue balls in a way because you're kind of expecting some big reveal to happen and that never really comes. Not to say that there isn't anything exciting about the third act. There is one certain thing that does get a little exciting, kind of gets the blood pumping a little bit. But right after that ends, there's still another, 25 minutes of the movie left that it doesn't really do much with. It's just not very exciting, especially with all the buildup leading up to it. All the mystery, everything that you've been trying to piece together throughout this whole movie. There isn't really a ton of payoff throughout the back half of it, which kind of just left me feeling kind of bleh about the whole ending of the movie. And I kind of saw this coming when the initial trailer dropped a couple months back. That it just had gave me that sense that, oh, this is going to be a great movie, but it's going to have either a terrible ending or a disappointing ending. I'm not going to go say as far as it was a terrible ending, but it was definitely lacking given everything else that we had throughout the whole movie that had me so amped up, that had me excited and locked in throughout the whole movie. It just doesn't really capitalize on what it introduces. And it doesn't really go as far to explain or draw out a lot of the stuff that it introduces, or it just doesn't answer any questions at all, or doesn't even bring up a lot of the stuff that was introduced again. I feel like they had a lot of different elements that they liked that they wanted to introduce into the movie. They just didn't really know what to do with them by the end of it. They didn't really know how to wrap everything all up in a nice little package and put a bow on it. Everything just kind of unravels by the end of it, and you're really just left like wondering what is going on? What is the point of this? Now, I understand a lot of people like this movie. I understand a lot of people maybe understood what was going on. I myself had a lot of questions coming out of this. I don't know if anybody else is like this, even if it's a movie I've seen before, but a lot of movies that I'm watching for the first time, especially in theaters, soon as once I get home from the movie, I'll pop on Reddit, see some other people's thoughts on it, maybe get some answers to some questions that I had. And this was definitely one that I went straight to Reddit after getting home from watching this movie to see if anybody had any answers or maybe picked up on stuff that I may have missed. But it seems like a lot of other people had the same questions I had coming out of the movie and felt very confused because there weren't a lot of answers or there wasn't just a lot of explanation in general for this type of movie. Now, I know it sounds like I'm really shitting on the movie, but I'm really not. I like the majority of it. I liked a lot of the stuff that was introduced in it. The performances in it were great. Dan Stevens, of course, is phenomenal as always. He is so good at just playing such like a menacing character or just someone that has secrets lying beneath the surface. He knows how to play that type of character. He's absolutely phenomenal. Like I mentioned, Hunter Schafer is really, really good in this one as well. I feel like some of the other performances in this movie were decent. I feel like a lot of the other characters don't get any of their moments to shine, really, like Hunter Schafer's character or Dan Stevens' character do. That's why I really mentioned those two above everybody else. There is a cop character in the movie that I think is going to throw a lot of people off in a way, just because of how much that character kind of flip flops about like maybe whose side they are on at any given certain point. And I'm not trying to be like spoilery like that. I just feel like that kind of character is going to throw some people off because they are bipolar in a way. I'm not saying the character is bipolar, but the way it comes off is very bipolar. They can be very subdued and secretive at certain points and also very loud and, upfront in your face at certain points. I feel like that character is going to rub some people the wrong way. Given I understand that there's certain plot elements that are making this character do some of the things that they are, I just feel like it was kind of handled weirdly. But as far as like the directing and cinematography goes, it looks great. The movie looks fantastic. There's a lot of creative shots, a lot of really cool elements that they introduce in this movie. I'm sad to say a lot of like the more scarier parts of the movie are in the trailer, which I absolutely hate when they do that. There's a lot of elements in this movie I think would have been great if you didn't know about them before going into it. Specifically, the one that they show in the trailer whenever Hunter Schafer's character is riding the bike down the road and you see the person running off in the distance alongside of her. And then she's looking down at the lights on the road and you see the shadow running behind her. If they would have left that out of the trailer, that moment would have been so effective in the movie. It's super tense, super eerie, and it's something I haven't really seen personally in a movie before. I think that would have been a lot more effective if it wasn't in the trailer. But there are only a handful of scenes in this movie that I would say are creepy or scary. There's only a couple like jump scares in the movie itself. I really wouldn't even go so far as calling this movie like a horror film. I would say it's definitely more of a thriller or a mystery type movie in a way, but I wouldn't go as so far as calling it like a horror movie. And another thing about the movie I really liked was the music, the score, and some of the music they incorporate throughout this movie. It's awesome. It kind of gives you a punk rock type of edge to it. I really like the music choice they incorporated in this. Now, to kind of talk about the entity that's in the movie that is constantly following the main character around, the one that you see in the trailers and the marketing. The looks like an old lady with like the glasses and like the hood up and like the weird goo in her hand. Without going into spoiler territory and all that, it is definitely creepy at certain points. I wouldn't go as far as say it's scary. The entity has this moment of creepiness throughout the film. But overall, I didn't find it that scary or creepy. I just feel like it comes off kind of just normal looking, like a random person is just following them around. I just didn't really find the design that spooky or scary by any means. Maybe that's not what they were going for. I definitely think they could have went with a different route as far as the character design for that, especially given some of the spoilery parts of the movie, especially given what the overall story about this entity is and what they are. I definitely they could have went out on a limb and went a little bit further with the character design or just the character itself and what they do. But this movie is very hard to talk about without getting into spoilers, very similar to Longlegs, so I'm probably going to leave it at that. Overall, it is a decent flick. It has a lot going for it. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of missed potential I feel there. A lot of questions went unanswered by the end of it and just you're kind of left scratching your head whenever you walk out of the theater. It definitely had a lot of promise and I wish they would have went a little bit further with what they were introducing in the movie. I like the music. The performances in it were great. The cinematography is fantastic. Now with these new release movies that are out in theaters, it's hard to do like a buy it, rent it, or miss it. So I'm gonna try to do like a go see it in theaters, catch it on digital, or don't watch it at all type of thing. With Cuckoo here, I would definitely say wait until it comes out on digital. Wait until it's on streaming services. Wait until it's on VOD or Blu-ray or what have you. I would wait until it comes out on digital to watch this one. I don't think this is a movie you definitely need to check out in theaters. Like Longlegs. Longlegs, I think you definitely should check out in theaters. Like, once again, if you haven't seen my review, definitely go check that out. Now, Longlegs is definitely the better film of the two. I can understand why Neon really put all their money behind that one and pushing it through marketing and trying to get it out there for everybody to see. Now, I wouldn't really compare the movie because they're not really the same type of movie at all. Just because they're made by the same distributor, kind of have the same type of feel to them in a way. But I would say this one definitely wait until VOD digital to check this one out. But for those who have seen the movie, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. And another thing, they do have a fucking cuckoo clock in the movie. By the way, spoiler alert, they have a fucking cuckoo clock. I got about halfway through this movie and I was like, how the hell are you going to call this movie Cuckoo and not have a goddamn cuckoo clock in here somewhere? They do. Sure enough, they do. Sorry to spoil that for you. It doesn't really have anything to do with the story, but I just wanted to let you know. I was thinking about the whole thing, the whole fucking movie. And of course, they introduce it in the back half at one point, and I was like, yes, thank you. They had to do that. But anyway, that is the review for this week. Next week, I will be reviewing Alien Romulus. I've been super fucking excited for Alien Romulus. I'm a huge Alien fan, so I definitely am going to be reviewing Alien Romulus next week. And I do have a special review the week after that with a very special guest, which will be announced here in the coming weeks. Make sure to stay tuned for that. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Trip Reviews. Also, drop in and give us a good review wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see everybody next week.